Hello, welcome everyone for another incredibly insightful, quick-firing and awe-inspiring Found webinar. The topic of choice this month is unlocking the power of SEO and PPC strategies, an integral topic for any care provider looking to level up their marketing, boost inquiries and increase conversions. But plenty more on that later. I'm Robin and I'm delighted to be your host once more and guide you through the subtleties and shades of SEO and PPC. There's so much to unpick with these topics. And we're here to introduce you to these different methodologies, but give you a foundation and also how to use them and get the best out of them, because that's really important, and how they can make an impact on your business. However, like always, I'm no expert in these sections, SEO or PPC. No, I'm not. I'm delighted actually to introduce our panelists today, which are, we're actually missing a panelist for the time being, but don't worry about that. That will soon be rectified, I'm sure. But I'd love to introduce you to two of my panelists at the moment, Chris Donnelly and Tobi Alli-Usman. Welcome, guys. It'd be great for you to just each take a moment and introduce yourself to everyone watching the webinar. Chris, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yes. So I suppose for context, obviously, those of you in the webinar that I know will probably know me in the capacity of Lottie and Found over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. Can't even remember now. Feel like I've been doing it forever. I suppose for context, I have been building websites and optimizing websites and being in that sort of world, I think, since I was actually 14 or 15. I built my first website at 14 or 15. And then I suppose the most professional part of my career is I built an agency, and over half the agency was dedicated to doing SEO for brands. And so I did SEO work, optimization, content, etc., for predominantly hospitality brands and fashion brands. But I did actually work with a lot of care brands over the last 2 or 3 years of the business. I did sell the business in 2021 and set up Lottie. And obviously, I think I'm very happy to take any and all questions, no matter how technical, on SEO or how basic, because with Lottie especially, one of the reasons it's done so well as a platform is we have got an enormous amount of organic traffic that comes to the site, and that is through SEO. So yeah, very happy to try and give an overview today and answer any questions. But safe to say, I think it's incredibly important, and obviously, Tobi can speak a bit more about how paid marketing works and how they can probably work together as well.
Cool, thanks, Chris. I'd like to just first welcome Kat, who has just joined us. It's a delight to have you. This was the tech chaos I was talking about earlier. I mean, Kat, you must be feeling great just being rushed onto a webinar. Welcome.
Hello.
First of all, I'll let Tobi introduce himself before we talk to you and give you a moment to sort of sit down and relax. But yeah, Tobi.
Lovely. Cheers, Robin. Look, great to be here. My name's Tobi Alli-Usman. I'm the founder and marketing strategy director at Prosperwell. Now, Prosperwell is a specialist health and social care digital marketing agency, and we work with some of the most successful care home and home care providers across the UK. And ultimately, what we do is help them solve 2 challenges. One, either attract private paying clients. So if it's a care home group, it's about increasing occupancy. And if it's home care, it's about getting to that next 1,000 hours. And then also attract staff. So it's about, generating, increasing your workforce and reducing the agency staff. Now, we've also expanded into the childcare and retirement living sectors as well. And over and above that, I run my own podcast called Tea with Tobi, where I invite sector leaders down for tea. And we discuss some of the biggest challenges they're facing preventing growth. And then most importantly, solutions for that as well.
Nice, thanks, Tobi. I for one would love a cup of tea. What kind of teas are you serving at this?
You know what? I'm a herbal tea guy. I love peppermint.
Me too.
Yes.
Yes, my man. Great, lovely to hear. Thanks for the introduction. And Kat, again, welcome. Kat Clayton is joining us today. I was wondering if you could just quickly introduce yourself to the webinar and everyone watching. That would be great.
Hi, yeah, as you said, I'm Kat Clayton. I head up sales and marketing for Berkley Care Group. And prior to Berkley, I worked for a large not-for-profit care provider for over 5 years. So I've been working in care for a number of years now, and in both roles, I've had to come in and revitalise the digital elements of the marketing. And digital is such a passion of mine, the SEO, the PPC, and just bringing it all together. So I'm really pleased to be here today.
Great, and we're delighted to have you as well. See, everyone, there's a lot of specialism in this room, and I'm delighted to get cracking and ask some questions and, you know, stop talking mainly. Just a reminder that, again, use the Q&A tab, ask your questions. Like, it's a really excellent specialized room today. So, you know, we'll try and answer every question that you have, but yeah, do use that below. Right, let's begin. I thought we'd begin with SEO first. For anyone that isn't familiar, SEO stands for search engine optimization. It is in its most simplest terms, SEO is a technique for anyone looking to increase their visibility on a website, for their website or product on Google, Bing, or maybe other search engines if you use them. I don't know. So Chris, I thought I'd start with you. Chris, can you start by telling us how SEO works and how you'd go about getting a high ranking?
Yeah, so I suppose it's a great introduction from Robin. You should probably do the SEO part in the future. What I would broadly say is, if you think about how someone buys a product or, you know, inquires about a product, they will typically ask a friend first. That's like typically how people do it, and that's historically how things have happened as well. That is now starting to shift, though. People will quickly Google almost everything in their day-to-day life and choice and so forth. And so the exercise of SEO, from a most basic sense, is to make your product or service appear higher in the results that you get on Google. So if I type in, you know, I'm currently right now in London Bridge, but let's say like I was in, I don't know, somewhere like Richmond or Putney. If I was typing in care home near me or care home in Richmond, I would want to find a care home very, very close to me. I mean, Google is understanding that from a local perspective, I want a care home near me. And so if you were a care home in Richmond, you would want to appear as high as physically possible for that term to capture that search intent. So I suppose that's the most basic explanation of SEO. But I suppose how does it work is obviously something that, you know, I spent a huge part of my career working on all the different tactics and methodologies with which you can help brands to gain traffic through SEO. And there are so many different methods. And now the nice thing nowadays is I don't sell SEO. I actually don't sell anything. And so I can give you a really honest perspective on the best things to do with regards to search and with regards to marketing. But I suppose I like to think of SEO in sort of three different ways, which is like content, so content on your site, the technical position and quality of your site, and then the links that are coming into your website. And so if you want to rank on Google for a term like, you know, residential care Richmond or care home Richmond, you would have to produce content, or you would need content on your site that said those things. But on top of that, all of your competitors will do the same thing. And so you need to ensure that you have a technically very well optimized website. And people always underestimate that. Once a website is built, people go, oh, it's built. Whereas actually, to have really good SEO and to have really good traffic to a business, you need to be continuously optimizing and improving your website. And then the final thing, which a lot of you might have noticed that Lottie does this quite a lot, but it's getting press and the news to write articles about your business. And by doing that, Google recognizes, or Bing recognizes, that your website is getting multiple links from other websites out there. And so it starts to assign you authority, which in the SEO world is called domain authority. And you get more authority from bigger websites. So for example, if The Guardian was to link to your website, Google would recognize The Guardian as a very authoritative website. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't know. But they would recognize that it's got a lot of traffic itself and a lot of authority. And for it to link to you, you must yourself be an authoritative source of information. So in its most basic form, that's how links work. And I suppose if I was to begin my SEO journey as a care home, the things I would care about is I want anyone in my local vicinity of my individual home, if they type in something, that could result in them having a positive conversation with one of my team, I want them to find my home. And so that's kind of how I think about it. So what would all of my target customers type in to find our service? I don't know if that was an okay explanation, Rowan.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great explanation. And also it's a really nice place to start for people starting that SEO journey, figuring out exactly like where to begin, because SEO, yes, it's a term, it's a strategy, but then what are the actual ways in which you begin that? And I think just typing out the terms, thinking of the ways that people are asking to get connected with you is a really nice way to introduce yourself to the subject. So no, very good. And then that will lead to higher rankings, more connections, and, you know, search engines giving you that authority. So very good answer, if I say so myself. You mentioned a bit about Richmond Care, for example, a Richmond care home. How important is local SEO then when it comes to being a care operator? Is that the most vital bit, really leaning on that location, would you say?
Well, it's certainly the way that the search engines are going. They are prioritizing local content above all else. And I think that makes sense. You know, if you're Googling, especially if you use terms in your search that denote that it will be local, then, you know, of course that will have a result. And with something like a care home, you would assume that you want your result to be geographically, you know, attuned to what you're looking for. But I suppose in the last 3 or 4 years, that shift has really happened. And so previously, local SEO wasn't a huge thing, whereas now, if you do type in care home near me or a name of a care home, you'll get something on the right-hand side, which is called Google My Business. And that will be actually a listing of a home. It will actually have so much information on the home. It will have the number, the website, etc. And so all of that local listing can be massively optimized on the care home side. Not particularly hard to do, just takes a little bit of learning, a little bit of effort. And I think, again, if I was answering this question for an operator with 1 home, I would answer it quite differently to an operator with 30 or 100 homes. So we work with some operators have 1 home, some 30, some 100, some 200. And so for 1 home, your local listing is honestly really all you care about. That is your biggest focus. If you have 30 homes, then you have to think about all the local listings of all the homes, but you also have to think about your brand. So you have to think that from a region perspective, if your homes are quite well grouped regionally, which often they are, you know, you want to be a brand that's known regionally within that space as well. So then you have to think about brand specific terms, region specific terms, care specific terms, and it gets a little bit more complicated. But I think if I was to start anywhere as a care home, I would start with local SEO as my focus. Yeah.
Nice, great. I'm a newbie. I'm a big noob. And what are some common mistakes that I should be looking out for starting that SEO journey? Yeah, when it comes to, what are some classic mistakes that people will tend to make when it comes to SEO, do you think, Chris?
So I'd say the biggest mistake actually is assuming that you can do SEO and it's done.
Yes.
As in, like, you can just do it and it's finished. It couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, you can set up a well-optimized, well-built website that is attuned to exactly how the search engines are at that time. However, the search engines, Google and Bing and the others, they change themselves quite regularly. They have algorithm updates because they don't want companies to be able to trip the algorithm all the time. That sort of goes against the principle of what these search engines are for. And so that's the biggest mistake, is assuming that you can just do your SEO and it be done. And anyone that tells you that doesn't know enough about how search engines work. The second thing would be to sort of look at SEO as if it's one discipline. So to think that just technically optimizing your website will help you rank for care home in Berkshire, in Richmond, in Surrey, you know, all of these things. So to not give the right amount of time and effort to what is quite a complicated marketing effort. So how do you rank locally? How do you rank in multiple towns? How do you rank for your brand? How do you then beat your competitor who's trying to do the exact same thing? And that's when you start thinking it is a bit more complicated than just building a website. And the funny thing is, obviously, I work with a lot of operators on the technology and the Lottie side, and the operators who do best in terms of customer acquisition are those who have the best SEO, and it's just simply because their brand awareness is higher. And so yeah, I would say not learning the different parts of it, because a lot of the operators we work with do PR quite a lot, and so they'll get interest and awareness in the market. However, digital PR is when you get those websites to put a link in that links back to your website, and we come back to what I was saying earlier about Google and the search engines or assigning you authority, and therefore boosting your own rankings. And so again, some of the operators that I've just done, I don't even know what to call it, like friendly consulting, just to help them out. I'd always say with your PR teams, just ask them the question, is that if they're getting all these fantastic articles in local press or national press, make sure they're getting a link back to your website, because the benefit is so huge. So those are some basic mistakes, but it is a complicated discipline, and so there are always a million mistakes day to day, and it's an ongoing thing. But if you get it right, and the benefit is obviously somewhat mind-blowing. If you become in the top, if you get on page 1 of Google for organic search terms with big traffic, you will often noticeably feel it in your business. If you get into position 1 to 3 for high volume search terms, it will be completely overnight a game change in your traffic, because something crazy like 80% of all the traffic for one term goes to position 1 to 3. So for context, that's a big old amount of traffic.
Yeah, no, and I can see the power in that, because that if you're in the top 3 there, you're getting noticed. That's the billboard when it comes to search engines, isn't it? It's there and everyone can see it. Then you just sort of take over the marketplace. And I love that idea of maintenance being key. I love that idea. You have to keep working at it, keep crafting, and keep learning about SEO and all the changes it makes. I think that's a really important lesson to learn. Thank you so much for your questions so far in the chat. We will get to that. I would love to, we do have some designated time at the end, but I'd love to talk to Tobi about PPC first. And before we ask Tobi some questions, PPC stands for pay per click, a model of digital advertising where the advertiser pays for a fee each time someone clicks on one of their ads. There's obviously more to it than that, Tobi. I'm sort of slowly defining it, but just as a quick definition. But Tobi, where should care home providers consider using PPC? And in a jargon-free way, can you explain how it works?
Absolutely. Look, the world of marketing has changed over the last 10 years. It's become super complex. So before I answer that, I just want to give a bit more context and give a couple steps back. So even though the world of marketing has changed, all marketing fit into 2 categories. All marketing fit into 2 categories, and I'll explain them. The first category is disruption marketing. It's things like billboards, leaflets, Facebook, radio. It's about pushing your message out to as many people as possible. And disruption marketing can be fantastic, because in one weekend, you could fly 100 of doors in a neighborhood. But the problem with disruption marketing is that I might receive a leaflet through my door right now. I might see, oh, I care home in my local area. But because I didn't ask to see that, I might not be on the market for care right now. So it's not always relevant. So to make disruption marketing, same as radio, same as Facebook, when you're pushing your message out to loads of people, to make it relevant, you need to continuously do it to a point where that person actually needs it. Now, I know a load of operators are ROI focused. So the other type of marketing is intent marketing, like Chris mentioned. If me and you are looking for something, the first place we're going to go is whip out our phone and do a Google search. And they've got the intention because those people actually picked up the phone and done a search. Now, I know in social care, there's a lot of traditional marketing still being done. So people advertising in your local GP, hospitals, billboards, radio. And I don't blame them, because traditionally that's where most people are spending their time. But post-COVID, The Guardian recently reported we spend 24 hours a week on our mobile phone. 24 hours. That's equivalent to just staring at your phone for a whole day. So now we know where people are spending their time and where their eyeballs are. It's important that you shift marketing accordingly. So let's talk about pay-per-click. Like Chris mentioned, I'll try not to use any jargony terms, but there are things you type into Google when you're searching for something that happens to be called a keyword. And how pay-per-click works is you will tag up a whole range of keywords, could be hundreds of different keywords, which include postcodes, local towns, villages, etc., care home near me, etc. And then you would select a target area. And then when someone types that keyword in that target area, your ads would appear. But at that point, you don't pay anything. It's only when someone actually clicks through on the ad, it comes to your website, you're driving that high intent traffic through to the website. And one of the things that Google really like about pay-per-click is that you're paying them. So you're going to be able to get to the top of the results very, very quickly. But if you have that right budget there. So that's just a simple way of how pay-per-click works.
No, I really like that. That's a lovely introduction into that world, because it's kind of nice to paint a picture of like SEO and then PPC alongside it, and
Absolutely.
I'm already piecing together how they can work in combination, which is really cool.
I'll just say, just quickly, gone are the days where it's only one. We're in a world where you need to be omnipresent. So you need to be focusing on PPC, you need to be focusing about SEO, you need to be focusing on community engagement. So I'll just quickly just add that in.
No, I completely agree. A diverse approach to communication and advertising is so important. Couldn't be more important, because you want to reach all the people, and all the people that might be interested in that care home or whatever. What is something that, if done right, can make a huge impact on a care home PPC campaign?
You know what? That's a great question. And the word you'll probably hear me say a lot today is the word variables. One of the biggest variables that makes a huge impact on the success of a PPC campaign is actually the website we're sending traffic to. Now, I know in the care sector, we spend a lot of time, care providers are really proud of their websites, lovely websites, great designs, great colors, etc. But unfortunately, when we work with providers, we have to sometimes tell them the website's not fit for purpose. And what I mean by that is it doesn't take into consideration the person who's actually searching, who is usually the son or daughter, the person that requires care. And there's a particular, that when they come to a website, there's particular things that they expect to see on the website, in particular orders, and from a usability perspective. So one of the big things that can make a huge impact is that page that they're sending traffic to, whether it's their actual website or you design a landing page on that specifically.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. An immediate aim and focus is always really good, and a good place to start for PPC. And more of a personal question on your own journey, but in your experience, where do care homes tend to go wrong on their PPC journey, and what is the best first step that you would recommend for them? So where do they go wrong, and then where do they start again? I guess that's kind of what I'm asking.
I think where they usually go wrong is they don't have the adequate budget to basically generate the result. And what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, you've got a destination for your business and it happens to be 100 miles away. It's just like filling your tank with only 30 miles worth of petrol. And then when you don't get to your destination, you're surprised. Why have I not achieved the goal? With pay-per-click, it's really important that whoever you're using, if you've got an internal specialist, that they actually do the research based on the competition, the search volume, etc., and make sure you've got an adequate budget for the actual result you're trying to get. I don't believe PPC is something you should dabble in, because the only winner is going to be Google. So if you're going to do it right and get it right the first time. There's a whole bunch of things that can be outsourced with the introduction of AI, some SEO, some not even SEO, some content writing, some graphic design, etc. But when it comes to PPC, it's wizardry. Even us as specialists that's been doing this for one particular sector for over a decade, we're constantly doing training every 2 weeks. So the first step that I would say is seek, whether you've got someone internally doing this for you, make sure they're an expert, not just in PPC, but in this particular sector. There's a lot of nuances that are different with this industry compared to other industries, that it's important that that will help get you that result. So the best first step is actually to seek, you know, an expert who's actually got experience in this that can guide you through it thereafter.
And then work solidly at it, and then, you know, be that just sort of in-depth look, like this is my role. I want to invest my time and effort into this one thing and get it right, because that seems to be.
Yeah, and going back to variables, there are so many variables in order to get it right. You know, there was some people say, what is the ideal, you know, cost per lead or the ideal budget? It depends based on the variable. There might be a care home in Cornwall that their average cost per click is, I don't know, just keeping numbers simple, £1.20, right? They may be able to get a lead every 66 clicks, right? But which means their cost per click will be around £66, £70, £80. But then if your CPC is 3 times higher, your average cost per lead is going to be 3 times higher. So there's other variables as well in terms of, you know, understanding what that demographic is in the area that you're targeting, what the competition's like in the area you're targeting, what stock you have as a care home. Are you affordable? Are you average? Are you premium? Are you luxury?
Yeah.
What are you charging? You know, there's so many different variables, and how are you best putting your foot forward? All of these different variables in that journey makes a big difference to that end result and the ROI overall.
Yeah, it's almost like as if you have to complete an audit on yourself before undertaking all this and working out what is your appeal, what is your demographic, who are you competing against. That seems so important and a really good first step. I love that. Kat, we've heard lots about the ways in which SEO and PPC work, and, you know, how to start using them. But I think it'd be nice to hear from you on like the effects and the impacts of that SEO and PPC that could have. Can you describe the positive impacts that SEO and PPC have had on your business personally? And it would be great to hear a specific time you utilized SEO or PPC and generated tangible results. That would be fascinating.
So I think going back to both points really is fundamentally your shop window, your website needs to be the best it can be. And quite often, when you come into a role like mine, the reason you've come into that role is because those things do need fixing, or they need re-energizing, you know. And in both the roles I've gone into, the websites were issues for us. So whilst we had to do all the work we've just talked about, who are we? What do we want to tell people? Who our audience is? Because there's several people make that buying decision now. And they're made up of multiple family units or friends and families. And so you've got to make sure that you've got all your optimization is right, and that you're talking the language of all the different types of people that visit the site, and you're building pages that either give short, concise information or give them the long information in a downloadable format because they like to go away and reflect. And you have to take into account all those people. But whilst you're fixing that website, and you may not be optimized to the best you can be, and you're working out how you're going to get there, without PPC, you're not going to drive anybody. So it's really important. You've got PPC and you've got, like I've done with Tobi's team, bespoke landing pages that are the best they can be, so that you're protecting people and still supporting them on that journey whilst you fix your shop window. And that worked tremendously well. So when I've worked with Tobi for many years. And when we first started working, Tobi was really honest and said the site isn't fit for purpose. So we built multiple campaign landing pages, and whilst we worked on the back end of the site, we pushed the traffic through via PPC, and it worked really well for us. We had really measurable, manageable, high quality leads that came through to the team. And it allowed us to do all the search engine optimization we needed to do. And we could learn from those campaign landing pages as well to see where people were drawn to and take that learning into the website build. So I think for me, fundamentally is, like you say, the work's never done. You test, you learn, you test, you learn, and you just keep going. I don't think you ever say a website project's complete. It's a constant learning and a constant testing. So yeah, without either, you just crumble, because to your point about localization, when I first joined an organization that had over 72 care homes, every care homes page read the same.
Yeah.
So you've got 72 pages competing against each other on Google. Google thinking, crikey, what is this? They're spamming us. This isn't an authentic site. And then thousands and thousands of pages of the same thing. Because then we had food and drink pages that were the same but connected to. So it was a big, streamlining exercise to make that content really, really valuable for the people that landed on it, and for Google to then see it as an authentic site. And when I've joined the Berkley Care Group, all the sites had their own standalone websites, and we brought them under one umbrella. And again, learning from what worked from the PPC campaign has enabled us to then apply that to the search engine optimization, give really lovely local descriptions, give all the food and drinks pages bespoke descriptions. So again, it feeds and you're learning.
I love that idea that the data you're receiving back is then immediately fed into the other half of the bucket.
Yes.
I love that idea that you need that PPC data to be able to influence SEO, and you need good SEO to be able to influence the PPC in the first place. It's a catch-22.
Fundamentally, yeah. If you do either of these and don't use the data it gives you, there's no point in doing it, because you need to understand the data that's driving the people that are interested to the site, so then you can create interesting content. You need to understand when people fall off your site. You need where, on what pages you're losing them on the site. Okay, so what pages do I need to make more interesting? To Chris's point, where aren't we ranking? So what do we do to make those pages rank better? So if you don't look at that data on a monthly basis, you'll lose out. You constantly need to look and learn.
Love that. And this may seem like a silly question after that excellent explanation, but why should more care homes specifically be investing in these marketing strategies, do you think?
I think for these two marketing strategies, as Toby said, it's the place to be. That's where people are spending their time, on their phone or their device. And as much as you might drive past a sign for a care home, later on you're there, you might not have remembered the name. So you might say, oh yeah, care home Leamington Spa, and you look it up. If that page hasn't been fully optimized, the PPC is there to save you.
Yeah, completely agree. Kat's disappeared momentarily. Might be an internet thing. But either way, I've had this budding question inside my head. When is the best time to start using, this is a question for both of you, Chris and Toby. When is the best time to start using SEO versus PPC? Which one should come first? Is it a chicken and the egg sort of situation? How do you start getting that balance right?
Chris, you want to take this one first?
It's a tough one.
Yeah, sure. I certainly don't represent SEO versus PPC. And I think that any good marketer would use them in tandem, in a blend that will result in the best outcome. I think it depends the way you are as a business. Like if you have just launched a website and you have a full care home, I would say I would pretty much exclusively work on getting your SEO going. However, if you launch the new website and you have an empty care home, then your absolute priority is filling beds. And so you would want to be doing paid marketing as soon as possible to get yourself to the top of the rankings to drive acquisition. And so it really depends where the business is. And I think that once you get into a cadence and a rhythm with this stuff and you do it properly, SEO should be always on and paid marketing should be always on. And I think we were just discussing it before, but you should be able to get to a place where you know how much every single pound will drive you in return. And then you get to an idea that it's okay spending, you know, X £100 or £1,000 a month because you know it results in X hundred or £1,000 in return. And it's the same thing with you know, SEO. You can look at your marketing efforts as a blended effort, and then you can look at, you know, what comes to the business. The one thing I would say to Catherine's point, which I agree with completely, is because I run the found business, the CRM business, I can see all the data for all inquiries in thousands of homes. And on a trend line, I can show you that phone calls in general have, for the first time in a long time, started reducing. And people are making more digital inquiries across thousands of homes. And then I can look at where they're coming from. And the referral source is much higher on Google and Bing, so SEO, and much higher on paid marketing, so PPC and paid social media. And so you can see these trend lines emerging. And if you think about it for a second, just from like take a step back and think about it logically, COVID changed the way that everyone uses technology, because that whole generation of people that probably would have never become fully digitally savvy, like my darling mother, you know, she never used the internet ever. She never wanted to put a credit card or debit card into anything. COVID happened. She now will never go back from online shopping. You know, she is now hooked and addicted, but she wouldn't have done that had that change not happened. And so you're going to start seeing that filter through now in day-to-day operations is, you know, people are more digitally savvy and people are going to inquire digitally rather than phone call, because that's the way the trend lines are going.
Definitely.
Rob, what was the question again? Or Kat, do you wanna jump in?
I was just apologising. I left on a critical note, didn't I? We had a
I loved it.
upgrade. It's like, I'm done, mic drop.
I'm done. Thanks, Kat. That was Kat Clayton joining us there. Yeah, it was very super quiet. Bang, off Houdini smoke bomb. I loved it.
So thank you, Chris, for carrying on.
No, it was great. It was really good. Toby, the question was, I was asking, like, if it's a chicken and the egg sort of situation with regards to SEO and PPC, what do you start with? When do you know is the right time to use which one? And, you know.
So I'll answer them separately. Chris made some great points there. Let's say, for example, there's a brand new care home that's open. They've got a brand new website. I would begin doing the SEO immediately, because it takes some time. You know, sometimes you don't get results within 4 to 6 to 8 months. So it's important that you're working on that. But in parallel, you need the paid ads running like immediately, because when that care home opens, you've got costs. You know, those costs are fixed at a very high time. So you have to have both in parallel. Like Kat mentioned, one of the things that we benefit from is we've got our own reporting suite, which tracks not only which keywords are driving traffic, but which keywords are generating the right type of inquiries as well. And we can track back those high performing keywords, which we can then feed back to the client and advise them not only optimize on these keywords because they're driving traffic, but optimize these keywords because they're also driving the relevant qualified leads. And then what you end up doing is you use the Google search results page kind of like a monopoly board. So you've got real estate at the top in the paid ad section. You scroll down, you've got the Google My Business real estate there, and you scroll down and organically you've got real estate. You're just increasing the odds of whichever way the user comes through actually choosing your business. The second part of the question is, what was the second part again? When's the best time?
Yeah, when's the best time to start?
You know, when is the best time? It depends on the care home. You know, it could be now. It could be yesterday. If a care home has available occupancy and they want to fill it, let's put it this way, a load of care operators don't really enjoy the benefits of having the home 100% full. Even a small operator that has 4 beds, let's say, for example, using rough numbers, a weekly fee is 1,250, and that's 5K a month. Let's say you've got 4 beds empty, that's 20K a month you're losing in revenue. Even if you spent 20% of that to increase that, can you afford not to run paid ads? So it's about, you know, there's only one thing I would say though. Some operators, I've seen a trend where if they have less than about 20 beds, based on their gross profit margin, they may not be able to stomach the cost of the media spend. So then it becomes an exercise where they actually can't afford to do it right with the right type of budget. And again, I don't think you should be dabbling. So I would probably use other means. But if you've got more than 30 beds, you know, based on the margins and you're charging at least £800, it makes sense financially to start investing in PPC.
Nice. Nice. Thank you so much for your answers there. I'd love to start looking at some of the audience questions, because I think they're really interesting and they touch on loads of different topics. Got a couple of questions from Kate. So guys, just jump in where you would like to answer. But Kate asks, once I've improved the SEO of our knowledge hub and overall website, how long is it likely to filter through to improve organic traffic? Chris, Chris, I love the facial expression.
Yeah, it's the million dollar question. Look, I mean, the knowledge hub, you're presumably talking about, you know, medium to longer form content, which is educational and advisory. Sorry, I feel like someone's drilling above me. Can you all hear that?
I can't hear that. So you're all good.
So disconcerting. But yeah, medium to long form content, super educational, trying to guide people through later life, hard decision making, care in general. That type of content will actually drive an increase in traffic relatively quickly. I would say 60 days, you will start to genuinely notice a shift in the amount of traffic you're getting. The one thing I would say is that the lower intent traffic, and so traffic that's not necessarily to do with transactions, will be easier to garner than the traffic that is more likely to result in transactions. So for example, the Holy Grail, as you know, Catherine and Toby will know, is like to come up in position 1 for care home near me when someone is down the road from you. Now that is because that person is specifically looking locally at that time for something near them they want to buy. You know, they are in transaction mode. To rank higher for those terms, I mean, it's a long, grinding, tough road, but everyone's working on it. And obviously carehome.co.uk have the most culminated traffic in our industry. And so they pretty much own position 1 for the vast majority of the high transaction terms. And then you have companies like, you know, Lottie, Trusted Care, others who are sort of in that space as well. And so for a care home to rank for all of those terms, it is something that you have to put a lot of dedicated time into, like time, effort, marketing, etc. But if you do that for 6 to 12 months, you will start to see really exceptional results. And if you can make it onto page 1 for any of those core terms or brand terms, you will tangibly notice the difference in both traffic to the site, but also conversions.
Nice. And Kate's second question, follow-up, was, what are the best tools you recommend for SEO in addition to SEMrush?
So I do love SEMrush, but the other tool I would say I use the most would be Ahrefs, which is a really old school SEO tool that's like been around forever, but is still amazing. So I would say that I check our, as in Lottie's rankings, our competitor rankings, almost every day on Ahrefs, because it's so detailed, it's so granular. You can track, you can look at charts like what position 1 to 3 are we showing for, like how many key terms, how are we doing in position 1 to 3 for transactional key terms against our competitors. And that's when you start thinking, okay, if I know I'm a care home here and there's 5 care homes around me that are different brands, I want to be in positions 1 to 3 on Google for all these key terms. You want to see how you're doing against those homes. And so it's a really amazing tool for tracking that. And then what's also happened with tools like Ahrefs recently is they've actually released an AI wizard. So it will suggest to you which key terms you can go after based on competition and quality as well. So it's a really useful tool.
Nice. Great. Thanks, Chris. There's another one from Anonymous here. This is quite a broad one, so I don't know who wants to step in for this, but the question is, how do you optimize a website? I mean, yes, quite broad. Yeah, Kat, I mean, I don't know if you want to start unpicking that that sort of question.
I think, yeah, I mean, Chris is clearly the expert, but essentially it boils down to auditing your site. I'd initially go out to either a existing client base of friends, friends and families of residents and your colleagues, and potentially agencies you're already working with, to see if it's talking to them at the right level and if it's doing that job. Then you'll know if your language is right, and then you can start working on your audience profiles, because you don't want to optimize for optimizing's sake.
Yeah.
You need to optimize on suiting somebody's journey.
Yeah.
So I bore Tobi with this a lot, but essentially I got into marketing because what motivates me is understanding someone's reason for buying. Why am I going to help them today? What service can you offer? And in order to support somebody on that journey, you need to understand their reason for buying, what drives them. And your site needs to do that at the very core. So you can optimize it and put all the words in and all the locations you like, but you still won't convert them to buy if you don't help them complete their journey, if you're not supporting them on that journey. So I think you have to get those principles right, do all the buyer personas, really understand that, and then work at the optimization. And Chris, you can jump in here, but I would start with, what's your core offering, making sure that's woven in, your localities in which you work, and if you're a larger brand, how you're going to work the branding, because that brand can be diluted just at home level, because let's face it, you might have 70 homes, but people are always going to answer with that home's name. So it's a careful balance of making sure the site speaks to the brand, but also keeps that home level, which everyone's got that relationship and trust with. So
Yeah.
I've gone it at a high level. Chris, you'll probably give a lot more detail.
No, I think that's a lovely answer, and I think that.
Well, I just thought, Rob, what we could do. I don't know why I didn't think about this before, but I can write a SEO 101, like a one-page A4 after this, and I'll just send it to everyone on the call. And it would just be like the basics of what you should do with a website, all the way from like beginner through to advanced. And it will just be a one-pager. And then yeah, if you want any like clarification, like happy to help. But I mean, Catherine's completely right. There's a million things you can do, and some of them will have a lot of benefit. Some of them have to be done for other things to be achieved. But yeah, I mean, it's not easy work, I would say.
No, definitely.
I'm gonna just say as well, one of the things that's super important, and Kat does talk about this with me a lot, is understanding where they are in their journey. And let's say, for example, you are creating content for someone who's early in their journey, and they might even be searching things like, benefits of a care home over living care. Or, yeah, let's just say that's someone who's still in that consideration phase. And then if you drive them through to your website, this person's still researching. So you have to have the expectation, if you're driving all this traffic through to your website, reduce your expectations on the conversions from that type of traffic. Similar, someone who's a little bit more closer, who's researching on, how much does it cost to go in a care home? Again, it's those people are coming through and they're still in the early phases. Now, the benefit of still doing that educational piece is, let's say they're in that local area, you can become that key person of influence, that trusted advisor at the early stages. So as they're building up their knowledge of, care, because in the UK, no one teaches you, they're consistently coming back to your site for that source of information. And when they are ready, boom, instead of them doing a generic search, they might even just type in your brand.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answers there. I feel like we've got the perfect, like, almost spectrum of where everything meets, knowing your journey, knowing how to optimize with SEO, and then the PPC alongside it. What I would love actually afterwards, Chris suggested having a one-pager on SEO. I'd love a one-pager on SEO and PPC that we can send out to everyone. So we'll definitely sort that out.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually just looking through the chat now. I'm conscious of time. There's a couple of questions here if I can jump in and just
go for it. There's
a question about landing pages and what to expect. I mean, what should people include on their website, etc. It's too long of a question to actually answer in full here, because before a client comes on board, we have like an 88-point checklist of things that need to be in a certain place. Kat's received large documents before from us. But if you just think about the user journey, if they do a search, first of all, if they do a search in Google and they land on your page, reaffirm that they're actually on the right page. So reaffirm it's actually a care home or home care, etc. Then guide them through the journey, tell them a little bit about the company. Then put your best foot forward and explain 3 reasons why, at least 3 reasons why they should be choosing your organization. Make it easy for them. You tell them, what are your 3 big USPs? Then what you want to do is start building trust. Now, trust is the most important thing when it comes to care. And there's a whole bunch of things you can do when it comes to trust. It could be your CQC rating. It could be your reviews, your care.co.uk reviews or whatever it is. It could even be things about your team, you know, a separate example. But I remember when my daughter first went to nursery, we were like, okay, we're gonna leave our daughter with some human beings. Who are they? Tell me a little bit about them. Great to see pictures, a little bit about the experience they've had in the sector. And then off the back of that, call to actions. Sammy, I don't know if you know if you're on the chat. I can't see the chat here. Sammy, if you're in the chat, we've actually developed an ebook called the 10 landing page commandments. I'm happy, Sammy, if you just put it in the chat if you're here, and if not, we'll send this over.
We can always send it afterwards. That would be
absolutely
great stuff to actually send out these tangible things as well. I think you're right. A lot of it is down to storytelling, starting off that story, and then having the legitimacy, the authority to be able to say, like, this is safe, this is reliable. I think those are key tenets. I really do, Toby. Just conscious of time, we will run over a bit because we started a bit late. But I just want to touch on as many questions as possible. Hi all. What would you say is the minimum budget for a successful Google PPC campaign these days? Assume standard localization and demand off the market.
There's no go and catch us.
There isn't one. You know, you're competing almost monthly on different factors. Toby, obviously you can talk to us in a minute, but you know, homes are by their nature in their locality. So you don't know whether a new home's going to appear down the road, or unfortunately a new home might close. It might be you know, it might be that you are competing more against home care all of a sudden. And all of those things, again, going back to what I said right at the beginning, is if you don't look at your data all the time, you won't be able to keep on top of it. So I couldn't sit here and go, oh, the sweet spot for a budget is here, because I've got a lot of homes in the portfolio, and each one of them have a different budget because they've all got different market factors to consider. And sometimes I have to raise their budget, and sometimes we go down, but we always set a minimum because, as Toby says, don't dabble, because once you dabble, it's only Google that wins. You've got to build your score back up. So unfortunately, I don't think I could sit here and confidently say you're looking at this per home.
Yeah, and I think that leads into Clive's question as well. As a small home care provider, what's the minimum? I think, again, like Toby, you can probably talk to this, is, you know, there is no minimum, essentially.
That's it. And we take it very seriously because, you know, care providers do some amazing things, and the last thing we want to do is just line Google's pockets with budgets. If someone's telling you, yeah, just spend £500 and we'll do the job, run from that person. We actually take a lot of time doing the research on the area, the cost per clicks, the level of search, and we actually propose a budget. And it doesn't, you know, we've got a PPC calculator that has formulas in it. So if anyone wants to ask me offline, or I'm happy to spend some time with them specifically for them, but you know, it's not one size fits all. And like I say, variables, so many variables.
Yeah, definitely. And this is probably a similar sort of varied answer, but what is a healthy PPC conversion? Someone asks, measured as a number of clicks per care conversion. Again, hugely nuanced and complex, I imagine.
Yeah.
But
One thing I'll just say is, with PPC, Google have a terminology called conversions, and I'm aware that some agencies are reporting conversions of people looking for sponsorship or things that basically are not care inquiries. But what we do is we strip away all of that non-care inquiry and actually use that data. But then again, it depends on, you know, you could be in a less affluent area and the CPC be low because the appetite for care is not high. For private care is not high. You can be in a very affluent area like Cheshire and the CPC is high and there's much more care homes. So it's driving up the CPC. And then you've got a higher cost per conversion, a genuine conversion than the person in the less affluent area. It doesn't mean it's unsuccessful. It depends on that particular context. So it's a much wider conversation. And that's the reason why, you know, as an agency, we made the mistake of thinking we can do everything, you know, PPC SEO websites. We said, you know what, there's a problem in this particular area. Let's really specialize in this area and refine it. So I'm sorry I can't give you an answer, but I'm actually saving you then from just giving you something that isn't factually true.
And I think if anyone comes in and pitches to you to say that you could expect, you know, average this per home, I wouldn't listen to them. If you know, they should be looking at each of your homes individually and giving you a case by case, not an overarching figure.
Yeah, that's great. I'm conscious of time. We'll probably only have enough time for 2 more, but someone has asked anonymously, what converts into move-ins better, Lottie or PPC?
I shouldn't be seen as like Lottie versus PPC.
Yeah.
And I always think like I'm a digital marketer first and foremost, like that's what my career and skill has been. If I was a care home, I would do both. And you will get a varied view and you'll get a varied price, and it will vary throughout the year. And it also depends on occupancy. For example, if you have very few beds, then you wouldn't want to be spending a lot either way. And so I suppose the one, and you know, I'm not running PPC myself right now, so I might be slightly out of the game. But a Lottie inquiry, for example, is you pay £100 for a qualified inquiry. You don't pay if you don't get it, I suppose is the key. I think with the paid stuff, you're pretty much doing the same thing, but you just have to qualify out the non-qualified inquiries. So it's actually, in many ways, should be looked at as a very similar type of thing. So it's all part of your paid media strategy as opposed to one or the other. I do think they work quite complementary together. All of that aside, if I was a care provider with a limited budget, I would probably focus my efforts firstly on organic. Just because I think that once you get your SEO going, your benefit in the long term is so significant. Before I started spending, for example, but I don't think you should choose between paid marketing or Lottie or carehome.co.uk, etc. You need a blend of all of it, depending on the amount of rooms that you need to fill effectively.
Yeah, and that comes back to what we were saying towards the start. It's that blend of different communications, different types of advertising. They're all just as important. You've got to have the smorgasbord, if you will, of different advertising ideals. One last question.
Can I just say something?
Go on, Toby. Yeah.
I think let's not focus on paid ads, SEO, Lottie, etc., and focus on the individual. How do they use the internet? Even if someone's using paid search and they come through to the website, when they do research on the business, they might actually find themselves on a Lottie or on a carehome.co.uk in order to see the facilities or read the reviews. So it's important that you are understanding the journey of the user. And then, you know, sometimes we have clients who come on board who run PPC, and then they tell us, oh, all of a sudden I'm getting all these inquiries from carehome.co.uk. And it's because they're doing their research, or from their Facebook or from wherever it is. So again, like I said at the beginning, gone are the days where you pocket yourself and only just one. You have to be omnipresent, because so much more is done before someone picks up the phone. Back in the day, if we think about yellow pages and you needed something, you pick up the yellow pages and just call the number, and then you'll make your decision based on that first call. Now users are doing so much more research in advance. Sometimes by the time they're getting to you, they're calling and they're saying, I actually want to visit. So you want to make sure you're in it to win it in the relevant places.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, completely agree. In the interest of time, I feel like we have to stop. Just because we do have more questions. Thank you so much for your questions. There's actually some really interesting ones in there. But I think what we'll do is that we'll send a message with all these questions, and then we'll type up the answers just so everyone knows what those extra questions were and the sort of answer we could give to them as a sort of something to take home. Plus all these tangible sort of one-pagers. Tobi mentioned the 10 landing. That was it. The 10 commandments.
Yeah,
The 10 commandments.
yeah,
We'll do the 10 commandments.
yeah, the 10 commandments. Yeah, afterwards I will shoot out a link to the ebook, 10 landing page commandments. This is just like the baseline of what you need to be figuring out over and above all the really techie stuff that you need to have on your site.
Brilliant. We'll send you buckets of all that. And just before we end, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to Chris, Kat, and Tobi for joining me today. Like, it's rare that you get so many experts in the room. Yeah, I've just been delighted to host it. So thank you all so much. We'll definitely be plugging you afterwards. And thanks very much for joining us again.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Take care.